Hi everyone, this is Helen from Modern Pepper. Thank you for joining me today. So today's recipe, we will be making JapChae, also known as glass noodles, and also some people call it vermicelli noodles. Now, JapChae is one of those famous Korean dishes that many people are introduced to in the States. In Korea, it is known as one of those dishes that are made on special occasions for birthdays or any celebrations. So JapChae typically is not something that you would make every day. And before we get started, I just want to go over what noodles to buy because it could be a little bit confusing when you're at the Korean market. JapChae is made with sweet potatoes. That's why it is somewhat see-through or clear, and that's why some people call it glass noodles. And no, I know some of you are saying, oh my God, I thought it was made out of glass. No, it is not made out of glass. FYI. Anyway, so it looks like this. The noodle itself is not called JapChae, it is called Dhangmyeon. So I will have all this information on my blog at modernpepper.com with a list of all the ingredients and recipe instructions. So I just want to go over a few of the ingredients that are critical to making JapChae with you right now. So the noodles are called Dhangmyeon. It starts with a D. And when you go shopping, just look for anything that says made with sweet potato or glass noodles. And then if you're unsure and because you don't know how to read Korean because you're not Korean, then you could flip over to the back and it will tell you that it is in English that it's made for JapChae, and sometimes it's spelled with a C and sometimes it's spelled with a J. So that's how you could kind of make sure that you're buying the right noodle. And because sometimes Dhangmyeon is written as vermicelli noodles. And the reason why I wanted to go over this with you, now there are these noodles called naengmyeon. I know naengmyeon, Dhangmyeon sounds kind of similar if you're not familiar with Korean cuisine. So that's why I wanted to go over this with you. So naengmyeon is buckwheat noodles that is used to make summer noodle dishes that are served cold. So I just want to show you how it looks. This is naengmyeon. And naengmyeon noodles are straight because it is processed through using different grains through a machine like this. And Dhangmyeon is the noodle that we're using for JapChae, looks like this because it's made out of sweet potato starch, so they can't really get it super straight like the naengmyeon noodles. So the reason why I wanted to go over this because some of the packagings will have vermicelli noodles for naengmyeon, and some of the Dhangmyeon JapChae noodles will also have vermicelli noodles. So ignore anything that says vermicelli noodles. Just look for any packaging that says sweet potato, glass noodles, and then you turn over to the back and just look for the instructions and make sure it has the word JapChae, sometimes spelled with a J and sometimes spelled with a C. Okay. So JapChae is typically made with beef bulgogi. Now, if you don't fancy beef, you could certainly use chicken bulgogi. If you don't fancy either one of those proteins, you could use mushroom. So please make sure to watch my video number 4, which goes over the different proteins that I use to make Korean bulgogi. But for today's recipe, we will be using beef bulgogi. Now, the other critical ingredient that I think is important to making JapChae is spinach. Now, I'm all about efficiency cooking because I am a mom of 3 and I love making delicious meals for my family, but I also want to find ways to eliminate a lot of work for me. So if you're going to be going to the Korean market to pick up Dhangmyeon noodles to make JapChae, I would go to their fresh banchan section or side dish section and just pick up a small package of Korean spinach. And Korean spinach is different from any other spinaches that you typically find at your regular American supermarkets. So this is how a Korean spinach looks like. Okay, it is never pre-washed, so it requires washing at least 3 to 4 times in running water. And then you also want to find Korean spinach that has the roots intact, and because there's a lot of sort of chewy and texture to it that Korean spinach is well known for. So this is an option. I will have a separate video on how to make Korean spinach that you could watch after this video. So my other alternative to Korean spinach is because, you know, a lot of my girlfriends are not Korean and they really don't have access to Korean markets, and they just physically don't have a lot of time to go shopping there to go buy Korean spinach. JapChae noodles you could certainly order on Amazon and get it delivered to your house. So my alternative to Korean spinach is using dinosaur kale, and this is how I would use it. Just strip off just the leafy part like so, and you don't even need to chop it, because for JapChae we want our greens to be kind of have texture and be able to sort of incorporate with the noodles without shriveling them to little pieces. And I know, I hear you. There's some of you saying, well, Helen, we could use those baby spinach that we find at the salad section. You can, but those baby spinach leaves are so tiny that by the time you saute it, it will literally just turn into like a small little size of a pea. And you know, and when you sort of try to toss it with the noodles, it really won't show. And you know, one of the key points of making JapChae is to incorporate different colors of vegetables. So I would highly advise to use dinosaur kale leaves, or go to the Korean market and pick up a pre-made spinach, or make Korean spinach from scratch, which I will show you after this video that's coming up next. And for Korean JapChae, using mushroom is also important too. And now if you don't like mushrooms, just skip it. But for Korean JapChae, typically they use these dried mushrooms called pogyo bosot, and you need to rehydrate this. You need to soak it in water, cold water, put a plate or lid on it so it's completely submerged in water, and let it soak overnight. And afterwards you just want to squeeze out the excess water and then slice it and use. For me, my personal preference is to use fresh mushroom. This is fresh shiitake mushroom. These dried mushrooms are really delicious. It has a lot of flavor, but it also is a bit stronger tasting. So it's sort of similar to porcini mushrooms in that after you rehydrate it, you need to saute it and kind of nurse it a little bit so that you lose the bitterness. Let's get started. And again, all the ingredients that you need for this recipe will be on my blog, on my website, so you could go there after you're done watching the video. So let's get started on making our JapChae. Now, before we begin sauteing our vegetables, the first thing to do is to take your Dhangmyeon noodles. And this package is a little over 2 pounds, so I'm going to use half of this package. So about 1 pound of Dhangmyeon noodles. And then they're kind of stiff, so you just want to make sure you squish it down so it is fully submerged, and put a heavy plate like on top so it pushes down the noodles and it's fully soaked. Now you want to do this for about a good 20 minutes. This is to sort of rehydrate the noodles so that when you put it in a pot of boiling water, we don't really have to cook it for as much as longer than we need. Hi everyone, now we're going to get started on sauteing our vegetables for our JapChae. So first we're going to heat up our pan and add a little bit of oil, olive oil, just a tablespoon, just to coat it nicely. And it's also important that your pan is heated nicely. And we want to take 2 eggs, just lightly beat it. And then we want to pour. Right now my heat is at high, and we just want to lift our pan and basically try to make a perfect round circle by doing this. Now it doesn't have to be perfectly round, because we're going to basically use the eggs as a garnish at the end, so it's cooking nicely. And you want to take your spatula at this point and just try to lift it up. And this part could be a little tricky, so do not worry if it doesn't come out as nice as you would like it to be, because again, it's just for garnishing. So what I would also do is at this point cut it in half, because we're going to actually cut up the eggs anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfectly white, round. And then you flip it like so. Ooh, I missed a piece there, but that's okay. Same here. Just flip it like so, and then it's done. And then we turn our heat down to low, and we're just gonna let it we're just gonna transfer it to a plate and let the eggs cool down. Put a little bit of salt and just let it rest while we cook the rest of the ingredients. I have a secret to share. I really don't like doing dishes, especially pots and pans. So when I cook, I try to use one pot or at best two. And here's my trick. You take a piece of paper towel, wet it, soak it in water, and then squeeze out the excess. And then you drop it in here, and then you just scrape it off like that. And notice I have a big pot of hot water going. So that's what I would do. Just take a piece of paper towel and remove the excess left over from the eggs. Now we're going to add a little bit of more oil for our next ingredient, just a tablespoon, and we're going to saute the onions. Turn your heat up to high, add your sliced onions. So we just want to get a little bit of brown spots on our onions, and we want the caramelization to start, but we don't want to cook it all the way through either, because we want the onions to have a little bit of texture when we toss it in with our JapChae noodles. And then add a little bit of salt. Now the onions have been sauteing for a good 2 minutes, and you'll see how you can start seeing the brown spots, and that's what we want. And then we're gonna add some green onions, and make sure to use the yellow part of the green onions as well. This is about three stalks of green onions. The green onions don't really need that much sauteing, and we're adding the green onions for its color as well as its fresh herb taste. And notice I have a big bowl next to me, and as we make our vegetable ingredients, we're just going to keep on adding them in here. And after we add it here, it's going to still continue cooking. So this is ready. Now we're going to add a little more oil and saute our shiitake mushrooms. So the mushrooms have been toasting away on this frying pan for about good 2 minutes, and this is what we're looking for, just a little bit of that brown sear mark. So this is almost ready as well, and then we're going to put it in our bowl. I just want to show you how pretty this looks. Look at that. So our carrots have been sauteing nicely for a good minute and a half on high heat, and it's ready. Add our red bell peppers. I mixed mine with a little bit of yellow and orange. And again, this is all just to add color to our JapChae. A little bit, and just let it dance around your frying pan for a good 2 minutes. And we just want to have a little bit of that brown spot mark, and that's it. We don't want to overcook this because we want our bell peppers to stay nice and crunchy. Because we just want to basically wilt the leaves and let it kind of steam in its own juices. So if your frying pan is smoking like this, it is fine. Oh, look how pretty the greens look. Look at that. Our dinosaur kale leaves have wilted nicely, and this is the texture we want. We don't want to cook it more than this. So we'll continue to cook, resting in our vegetable bowl. So I'm going to turn the heat off and pour it in our bowl. So this bowl could just rest on the side while we cook our protein of choice. And I will be using bulgogi marinade that we made from last week's video. That's video number 4. If you haven't watched it, please watch it. And you could certainly use chicken bulgogi, or you could use mushroom bulgogi. It really is up to you. I'm going to add a little bit of oil. Make sure your frying pan is super hot now. And then I'm going to add my bulgogi. So the meat is sizzling really nice. So I'm going to turn down my heat to medium. And then turn the meat over. You see this brown mark? That's what we want. So cooking bulgogi on a frying pan, you have to constantly move it around a little bit because the marinade will burn in the high heat. So just let it move around. And at this point, I'm going to add 1 cup of hot water. I wish you could smell this. This smells so delicious. So you're wondering why the water? We're going to use the water to sort of create our own juice to marinate our japchae noodles. So there are other ways of making japchae noodles. After you boil the noodles, you take it out, and some people like to put it back on the frying pan with oil and sort of create a crunchy sort of seal to the noodles. Other people like to put it back on the frying pan with a lot of beef broth, and then they like to braise it a little bit to soften the noodles. How I like to do it is create bulgogi juice, and this is a trick that I learned from my aunt in Korea, who is probably, in my opinion, the best chef in the family. And all my mom's side of the family, they all are restaurateurs, and she is the most successful one in that she has literally an empire, and this is how she taught me to make it. Anyway, Taejong and Minchal, tell your mom I said hi, and I just talked about her. Anyway, so this is the way my aunt taught me how to make it. You make a little bit of basically au jus sauce broth using the bulgogi marinade that you just made, and we're going to taste it. So it's also important to pour hot water in here, not cold water. So I added a cup of hot water. Oh, this is really yummy. So we're going to put this aside. Hi, so our water is boiling, and we're going to get ready to make our japchae noodles. So once the water is boiling, we're going to add salt. How much? I would add about half a cup to a pot this big. And then this is our pre-soaked japchae noodles that we put a plate on top. And I just want to show you how it looks. So the noodles are now no longer stiff, and it's ready to go. So we're just gonna put them in here. So it's really important to use a big pot. If you try to cram all these noodles into like a medium-sized pot, you know, your noodles won't cook the way it should, because noodles like to be cooked in really hot water with enough space and not be crammed in there. We're going to take our tongue and just move it around a little bit. And you want to stand over your stove, because you know, when you cook noodles, water tends to boil over, and then it makes a huge mess on your stovetop. So make sure you stand next to your stove and keep an eye on it. If it starts boiling over, turn down the heat and then turn it back up and watch it carefully. This will take about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we could test it to see if it's also ready. It's been about a good 3 minutes, and we're just going to test it and see if it's ready. Okay. So it should be nice and chewy and slightly salty from the salt bath that we made earlier. And now this is ready to be pulled into cold water. And make sure to have a big bowl of cold water ready. You don't have to put ice in there. Just regular cold water will do. And then just transfer the noodles into this big bowl of cold water. Hi, so we're gonna take our noodles that we put in a cold bath, And we're going to pour it into a strainer. And we're just going to add it back to the bowl and add some cold water. And I don't want to actually make the noodles cold per se. I'm just trying to stop the noodles from cooking. So the noodles are still very warm to touch. So you just need to rinse it one more time and it's ready. Then we're going to pour it back into our strainer. And make sure it drains properly. If you just move the noodles around like this, the water will drain faster. The noodles have been properly drained. Let it rest for a good 5 minutes. Hi everyone. So now we're going to put our ingredients together and marinate our japchae noodles. So we're going to take the egg that we made earlier. It's nice and cold now. And what you need to do is just roll it up. And this part does not have to be perfect. It's just really for the color of yellow to garnish. And then just cut it like so. So basically if you unroll it, it just looks like egg noodles, literally scrambled egg noodles like that. Okay, and then we're gonna put this aside. And then we're gonna take our japchae noodles that we made earlier and we let it drain for 5 minutes, okay? And then we're gonna put it in a big bowl like this. And then we're gonna take scissors and just crisscross cut it this way and this way. And this is just to help you toss all the ingredients together. And then before we start putting all the vegetables and the bulgogi, whether you're using beef or chicken or mushroom, I like to put on my favorite kitchen tool, Korean disposable kitchen gloves. So this is our bulgogi, beef bulgogi that we made earlier, and I'm just going to use my kitchen scissors to just chop it up into smaller pieces. Now, if you want to have more beef in your japchae dish, you may add more. If you want to have less, then add less. But this is about 2 cups of bulgogi marinade that I made earlier. And if you haven't watched my video, that's video number 4, where I do a variety of different bulgogi marinades for beef, chicken, and mushroom. So make sure to watch that. And then we're just going to add this in here to our mixing bowl, and we're just going to toss it. So the au jus that we made from the bulgogi marinade is now being soaked up by the noodles, and the noodles are changing color a little bit, slightly brown, and that is what we want. This is how it looks so far, okay? Now we're gonna take the medley of all the vegetables that we grilled earlier, and we're just gonna toss them all in here together. So look how pretty it looks, the colors of all the vegetables. I mean, that's what japchae is really known for, just all the variety of vibrant colors of the vegetables. Now, I'm using dinosaur kale. If you don't want to use this, you could watch my next video on how to make Korean spinach to put in here. We should taste it. A lot of people like to put a lot of oil into their japchae, and for me, I don't really like to, because I feel like I already added a lot of oil as we cooked our vegetables. But certainly it's an option if you would like to. So I just want to taste the noodles with a little bit of the vegetables and the gogi and some onions. Oh, the onions are so good, and the gogi too. Now, at this point, I would add a little bit of salt, because the au jus that we made earlier is not enough salt to me. So you're gonna just add salt to taste. And then some soy sauce. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of soy sauce. And it's up to you, just taste it as you go along. And I'm gonna put my gloves back on. And you might need to have your kids come, or your husband or your friend or lover come by and just taste it for you, because you know, saltiness is something that's very personal. So I like to eat on the side of less salty than most, but again, it's your preference and your choice. So we just added some salt and some soy sauce. I just want to show you how pretty this looks. Look at that. That is so pretty. So I'm going to taste it again, this time just the noodles. Now it's perfect. Now it's perfectly balanced saltiness. You could drizzle a little bit of sesame oil, just a little bit, less than a half a teaspoon, and just toss it. And again, sesame oil is really strong tasting. It has a very fragrant, nutty taste, and it is super, super fragrant and delicious. So just add a little bit, not a lot. And just toss it one more time. After plating our JapChae, you take your string scrambled eggs and you just put a few pieces on top. It's again really more for color. And look how pretty that looks. And that's it. This is your JapChae. Super, super delicious. It's so colorful. It's a great noodle dish that has so many vegetables, and I think this is something that my kids love to eat, even though it has a lot of vegetables. And so I hope you get to try this at home. The egg, the gogi, the shiitake mushroom. I hope you could taste this. This is a bite full of chewy but yet still soft sweet potato noodles, loaded with vegetables, with shiitake mushroom, egg, pepper, sauteed onions, and dinosaur kale. This is a bite full that I wish I could share with you, but I can't. So try this at home, and I am sure that you will enjoy it with your family and friends. Bon appetit, and then until next time, happy eating.